biggest week in Antony Joshua's career is upcoming, and we're here to break it down. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the STAYWEIGHEDIN Podcast. My name's Abbas. I'm joined by Ray. How you doing?
Yo, what's good, people, and to the Muslim followers out there, Ramadan Mubarak. I said that right.
I like that. Yeah. I like that.
I'm cultured.
No, man, but you doing good?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thank you. How about yourself, man?
Good, like you say, this Ramadan, so we're a little bit hungry, but everything else is nice and a breeze. But we're here to break down Antony Joshua versus Jermaine Franklin. It's been built as New Dawn. It's basically like Joshua 2.0, you could say, essentially. And I guess the first thing I want to say, before we actually touch on the fight, have you ever seen a Joshua fight week with as less hype as you have this time round?
Listen, man, when you're winning, they're all on your side. You lose a couple, and then this world turns nasty. But I think, do you know what? Sometimes it's actually a good thing because you cut through the noise. I think when everyone saw him falling apart, obviously you saw a lot of people taking joy in that. So I think for him, he might be at peace where it's just like, cool, now I know who's really on my side, who's waiting on my downfall, who's neutral. And sometimes as well, I think with him, it's kind of less like he's won already. Like in a sport where a lot of people, don't get the financial reward that their work deserves, he's one of the few people that has. So he might be finding peace in this and just like, do you know what? Now I can focus on boxing. I don't have to focus on, AJ, the commercial brand, as much. Obviously, he still does have to a bit, but he probably is thinking, maybe this is the first time in a long time, I can focus on a fight more. You don't need to bring out the big dosser as much because, let Usyk deal with him. So, yeah, I think, and just like match up with Derek James in his corner, which I said a couple of years back, which would be the better trainer for him other than Garcia, but there's a lot of interesting intangibles that we're going to see this Saturday.
I was going to say, so let's go into the fight itself. Because of the opponent and the lesser magnitude of this fight in terms of the eyes on it and stuff, are a lot of people expecting the AJ of the old, where they expect this fight to be quite short and for him to be able to get this in within the first 6? Or can it be one of them where you overlook your opponent going into it and all of a sudden you're into the 9th round and the 10th round and it's getting a bit more nervous? Even though he's in control, you're still waiting for that knockout for a lot of people to say, okay, AJ's back type of thing.
I think with this new trainer, I think AJ is in a space where he'll be eager to show who he is and to show the improvements. I think he seems rejuvenated. I've seen in interviews where he talks about the fact that he's not leading this camp no more. He's going in there as a challenger, basically, or challenger mode as much as possible. Because guess what? It is hard sometimes when you've been the leader of your ship and it's giving you much success. And I won't even call this AJ 2.0. I'll call it AJ 3.0 because obviously it's like when he first left from Kraken and he went to take on Usyk, he did look decent with Garcia. He did. I still didn't think that was the right match because I just felt like Garcia's style suited more of a lighter weight fighter, but he went in there. That was 2.0. He showed a good improvement. Usyk still had his number. So Derek James, he's actually fully gone to America and immersed himself in camp mode out there, whereas before it was just like, yeah, he bought in Garcia, but he was still pulling the strings, running things. And I think AJ's just been like, listen, I've gone there, I've become one of them. So to see how he looks now will be very interesting.
I was going to say, from your point of view, being that you are a Joshua fan as well, me, like I say, if you were to talk about heavyweights, I lean towards Deontay Wilder over anyone personally. But being that you are a Joshua fan, what are you expecting to see? And what's the ideal outcome for you in this particular fight outside of a win? How should he look to make it seem like, yes, this is AJ and this is the guy that can revitalize his career again?
I expect nothing. I just want to see improvement. I just want to see what he's worked on. I want to see that he's out there and he's a new person. But I don't expect it in the form of like, he has to go in there and KO a man in 6 rounds. And don't get me wrong, I want to see if he's got a killer instinct in him still. I still want to see if like he's turned the corner or finding the right balance of being a great boxer, but then at the same time still have that killer instinct that when he gets someone hurt, go in there, get them out of here. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's my thing. What have you improved on? Are you actually a new fighter, and can you teach an old dog new tricks? And especially at this part of his career, you could call it, some people might call it the twilight, it is what it is, but it'll still be interesting to see just, what new things he can still add to his fold. And I'll be interested to see that most.
It's funny you said twilight because that implies that it's on the dwindle down type of thing. However, based on where AJ is in his career, you could probably see him the most active you've seen in the past 4, 5, 6 years, you could say, since he's held the belts. Let's say he goes on to beat Franklin. In terms of where he is, AJ, in his career, how many times do you expect him to be fighting to be able to put down a marker that he's an active heavyweight again? Because obviously we can't see the one fight per year type of thing in the current state that he's in. Are we seeing 3 or potentially 4 fights? I'm personally leaning on 3 in the year myself.
I think 3 max, 2 hopefully. I think what people need to understand is that at the top of the division, I don't mind when I only see the top fighters face someone twice a year, because at the end of the day, you've got to realize as people get near the top and, you hear certain complaints, oh, he doesn't knock out people like he used to, this, that, and the third, because it's top competition. You're not meant to go in there and everyone's going to get finished. That doesn't mean I don't want to go see you do that. But when you face the top guys, guess what? It's going to be harder to knock those people out. And with top guys comes, longer training camps. So with top guys comes more time to acquire new skill and then go in there and compete at your best. And because of that, you can't keep on doing a lot of fights per year. So even if it's a case of you train, a long time outside of training camp, because I liked when I saw a podcast with to bring it to MMA again, a trainer called Faraz Sahabi, who was the trainer of George St. Pierre, who many consider the greatest of all time in MMA. And what he said about George is the reason he fought twice a year is because when you do training camp and it's 2 and 3 months, let's say that's 4 to 6 months of training camp. When you're in training camp, you're not always learning new skills. You're repeating stuff that's, tailored to beat someone, but you're not actually learning new skills to add to your repertoire. So in training camp, because you're not learning new things, how do you improve as a fighter? You don't as much. You're just going in there to train for someone to compete. So then the reason he said he liked his fighting 2 times a year is because you're at the best that you're at the top. You need more time to acquire new skills so that when you do fight, you're up to date. Because if you're just always in training camp, guess what? You're not going to learn something. And then sooner than later, one of the up-and-comers is going to get you, because whilst, you're constantly in training camp, just doing repetition to get you ready for a fight, there was someone who was out there who, they may not be in training camp and they're learning new skills. So with AJ, the most I'd ever want to see a top fighter fight is 3 times max, and that's even pushing it. Like the same way Mayweather done it twice a year, the same way Canelo does twice a year. I've got no issue with it as long as it is at least twice a year. Whereas AJ did get to the point where it's like once a year.
And that used to be that September type when you got that one stadium fight, because it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. It was just that right temperature that you knew everything was going to be fine. What I will say is the reason I was leaning on 3 is you touched on Canelo and Floyd, but they were always, as much as AJ was always the A side in every fight he's going to be in, they were always at the A point in their career. They were never at a B point in their career. I think AJ currently is at a B point in his career, pushing back to that A. So that's why I lean a little bit more to activity. And then once we get through 2023, we look to 2024, and he's already at that point where we're looking at him like, that's a mega fight financially and commercially and with the eyes on. That's when I see the 2 times. But on that then, being that 2 or even 3 times, what would you say would be the correct trajectory for 2023 for AJ this year, providing he beats Franklin?
I didn't want to bring up this guy's name, but we're here now. Tyson Fury.
2023 Fury.
Tyson Fury still wants that AJ payday. Let's be real. AJ with a convincing win. I guarantee you, Fury will put Usyk to the side, will put Undisputed to the side, and he will call out AJ, and he'll try and make the AJ fight 60-40 in his favor, because Fury knows that no matter how much everyone wants to look down on AJ and chat rubbish on him, he's still the money man. Even in a deficit, he's still the money man in this. If AJ wins, of course. And if AJ wins emphatically, then I honestly think that Fury will try and make that fight. So I think it'll just be interesting. I think Fury's next move is either going to be Joe Joyce or AJ, depending on how this fight goes. Both are nasty because we should be looking at Undisputed, but that's in a whole nother episode. But I feel with AJ, if it was up to me, I'd want AJ to fight Franklin, then face Dillian Whyte, give Dillian Whyte, his last big payday. And I still feel like AJ needs one more fight after this one, if he wins, just to get him back to where he needs to be. I don't think it'll be smart to put him right back into the killers. Because at the end of the day, if he wants a belt, what are we going to do? AJ Usyk 3? Nah. So I'd rather see either AJ fight Dillian Whyte or someone near the top, or it might just have to be time for AJ versus Fury.
I was going to say, so I look at it, I like Dillian Whyte, potentially a trilogy with Ruiz or Zhang as another guy, potentially just to be able to get the names out there. For me, I don't see the Fury call out. I think...
No. Fury's not going to call... No. AJ won't call out Fury.
Well, I mean, yeah, Fury calling him, I can't see it happening, because if he does, he's already got everybody on his case for what he messed up with Usyk. For him to even attempt to do that adds fuel to the fire of your ducking.
Fury does not care, and I've been saying this for years. This is the guy that I've been telling you that he was this whole time. He doesn't care. Fury will find a shameless way. It will start saying, friend, Dossa this, Dossa that. Listen, this is the same guy that publicly went outside and said, Usyk, let's do it 70-30, which was criminal considering the fact that Usyk is the one with 3 belts. Usyk still said yes, and this guy still found a way to worm out the fight. He has no shame. So to think that he won't have shame to call out AJ, I don't understand what people think. This, like, why do you keep on expecting sense from someone that's showing you they're shameless? The guy will call out AJ if the money makes sense.
You know what? I get what you mean, and a little bit of me understands where you come from, because you can have the instant response now with social media, and he's probably already got a video loaded up that he'll probably put out. But I do want to talk about the financial side of this. We know AJ's got the big money deal with dazn, and this was signed prior to Usyk's rematch as well. This fight itself, it's funny because it came out and it wasn't on the pay-per-view model, as they say. But then you look at the pricing of how dazn leaped up to $19.99. Essentially, they're charging pay-per-view without stating it's pay-per-view. And now they've moved over to the Sky channel as well. Is this accumulation of dazn not being able to get the subscribers that they wanted now that they managed to get AJ on, and they need more eyeballs on to be able to move to the TV side of things? Like, was this always going to happen for them eventually?
Listen, man, there's a cost he lives, man. Like, money have to make, and I don't even think this was DAZN's plan. I just think, listen, the world is going in a certain direction, and DAZN have to act accordingly. And I feel like the pay-per-view thing was never going to die. I know what they were trying to do. I applaud what they were trying to do, but especially with a sport like boxing, it's not sustainable. And I feel like DAZN as a product is good, but then when you've got, I think it'll be good for fighters that are up and coming. When you have fighters on there that are like the AJs and the Canelos of the world, you do not have enough money purely by doing it via the app. I think it's a great idea. I think what DAZN is actually brilliant, but there's many factors to it which has forced their hand to go down this route. One being, like I said, boxing as a sport would be hard to sell by itself. So I think the zone now in different, regions, they have other sports that are complementing the package. So I just think it's
in the UK we only get boxing because of broadcasting rights for everything. That's where the sticky block is essentially a month, unless you want to do the $9.99 or you want to pay, I think it's $89.99, whatever it is. You're just stuck with boxing. It's effectively a boxing channel here.
Yeah, and the thing is, like I said, I think for the zone, it's a case of if it wasn't for the fact that you've got some of the biggest names in boxing, arguably the biggest names in boxing under your banner in AJ and Canelo, guess what? You cannot charge the low price they were charging before because they're thinking in order to keep those guys, we have to pay them the big bucks. And that's the economics of boxing, and that's the economics of the sport, and it's the economics of the land at the moment. You can't look at, for example, BT. With BT, you get Champions League, you get WWE, you get UFC. Did you get what I'm saying? Those big entities by itself, you'll be like, yeah, I want to buy BT Sport. Yeah. If the zone go, oh, we're offering boxing, I myself like that. But then I also understand if you want to go to the masses and not just the boxing fanatics, you can't just give them boxing because boxing isn't as glamorous as I think the money that we hear sometimes in boxing. People think that goes to everyone. I'm like, no. The top 1% guys get that type of big money. Whether you're talking about Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, AJ Canelo, those are the people that get those type of big, like millions upon millions. Everyone else is not getting millions upon millions. Do you get what I'm saying? Because the money's not in the sport like that. It's not spread like that. And I think that's what's happening with the zones model is showing that, where when you do have big stars, the money has to go up. And unfortunately, we're on the other end of that.
So I was going to ask you one last question before we wrap up. We've talked all throughout this about AJ and what's next after this and stuff. If Franklin was to win, and we've seen the upset with Ruiz happening before, if Franklin came out and somehow pulled off arguably a bigger upset in my eyes, is it just a case of, look, let's just retire, put the gloves down type of thing? Because I personally wouldn't know how you come back from that as well.
Probably, or it might just be, if he loses to Franklin, we'll just probably have a farewell fight with Dillian Whyte. But yeah, it would be hard to. It's a weird one because I feel like where AJ's in a freed up space where it's almost like financially you don't have to worry as much because you've been paid the big bucks for years. You've been the big name for years. So it's almost like you don't have as much pressure. He has pressure, but it's a different type of pressure. It's a rare type of pressure where it's just like your throne is on the line, but at the same time, it's not the world titles. And at the same time, you're already well.
It's that element, I think Wilder was saying when he made his comeback, you're hanging on the string of your eliteness. And one little loss kind of tips you off that, and that internet, everything will come back.
I get it, but do you know why it's different? Because what AJ's accomplished money-wise and resource-wise, he's set. Whereas other fighters, there's a reason why no matter how much they try to say AJ is washed and all these negative things, they always mention his name because he's that accomplished. Yeah, AJ is a bum, he's this, he's a dosser. Why do you always call out Dosser's name then? Why is that Dosser's name always in your mouth? Why is it that, this bum or whatever, hyperbole you want to call him, his name's always mentioned? Because guess what? Even when he's fading, he's a cash cow. And even if he loses and said, you know what, I'm going to retire, he's probably calm. He's got his management company. He's got other ventures. He's got stocks in DAZN. He might just be like, listen, man, that's me. Time to go into my promoter bag and go into my entrepreneurship bag. And do you know what I'm saying? So
I hear it. I just think from a boxing standpoint, he needs to give this little DAZN run, exclusive run, it needs to go into 2024 with substance.
Of course.
I don't want it to be like how you said, where by the end of 2023, somehow that one loss has hit and it's gone.
Whoa. Listen, let's get one thing straight. It's Team AJ for the win all day, every day. That's on guard and them. Nem and guard. On guard and them. And I don't even know who them is. With Adrian Broner. So it's still AJ win, but I was just answering the question like what you said. If AJ was to lose, so what? I've overachieved. This is a guy that just picked this up at a time when he was a young offender, and he's become an Olympic gold medalist, unified world champion, great resume. Picked this up at 18, 19? Brother, he's overachieved. So it's like, just go out there and focus on the boxing, man. That's what we need to do.
I like the way that ended. Nice, calm, peaceful way. But we'll see what the gloves are saying on Saturday night as well. But with that, we're going to wrap up today's episode of the Stay Weighted Podcast. As always, if you enjoyed the content, like, share, subscribe. Drop your comments below as well. What you think the outcome of this fight will be, and what is the future for AJ depending on the outcome of this fight as well. We really appreciate you for taking time out, jumping on, having a conversation, and
always.
Peace, guys.